The War of 1812 was a pivotal moment in the history of North America, a clash of nations that would test the resolve of a young United States. But what truly sparked this confrontation? How did a nation that had only recently gained its independence find itself once again facing the might of Great Britain, a power that had dominated the world for centuries? And why did this war unfold across such a vast landscape, from the seas of the Atlantic to the untamed frontiers of the American wilderness? In this video, we're diving deep into the events leading up to the War of 1812, the battles that shaped its course, and the lasting impact it had on the future of the United States and North America. Stay with us until the end to uncover the surprising twists and turns of this often overlooked war. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more intriguing historical stories like this one. The seeds of the War of 1812 were sown long before shots were fired. It all began with territorial disputes and the question of who would control the future of North America. Tensions simmered as the United States pushed westward, eager to expand its territory into the lands held by Native American tribes, many of whom were supported by the British in their efforts to resist American encroachment. The Old Northwest, a region that today includes parts of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin, was the focal point of these disputes. The British, still in control of vast parts of Canada, saw an opportunity to weaken the United States by bolstering the resistance of Native American tribes. For years, they supplied weapons and support to these tribes, fueling the flames of conflict. But it wasn't just land that caused tensions to rise. Across the Atlantic, a much larger conflict raged, the Napoleonic Wars. Britain and France, locked in a struggle for dominance, imposed restrictions on American trade, hoping to choke off supplies to their enemy. For the United States, these trade restrictions were more than an inconvenience. They were an insult to their newfound independence. The most galling of all was the British practice of impressment, forcing American sailors into service in the Royal Navy. British warships would stop American vessels, seize sailors, and claim them as British subjects, even if they held American citizenship. This blatant disregard for American sovereignty was the final straw. On June 18, 1812, after years of escalating tensions, the United States declared war on Britain. But not everyone in the country was eager for conflict. In fact, the decision to go to war was deeply divisive, splitting the nation along political lines. The Democratic-Republican Party, led by President James Madison, was in favor of war. They saw it as a chance to assert American rights on the international stage and to defend the nation's honor against British aggression. On the other hand, the Federalist Party, based primarily in New England, was strongly opposed. They argued that war with Britain would devastate the American economy, especially the maritime trade that was vital to their region. Despite the opposition, the war was on. Yet, even as American soldiers prepared for battle, a critical piece of news arrived from across the Atlantic. The British had made concessions in an effort to avoid war. Unfortunately, this news reached American shores too late. The conflict had already begun. As the war unfolded, it became clear that the United States was ill-prepared to face the might of the British Empire. At sea, the Royal Navy imposed a crippling blockade on American trade, choking off vital supplies and sending the American economy into a tailspin. The blockade was so effective that, by 1814, American exports had plummeted by 90%. On land, the United States fared no better. A series of ill-fated invasions of Canada, then a British colony, ended in disaster. British regulars and Canadian militia, often aided by Native American allies, successfully repelled American forces time and again. The dream of expanding into Canada quickly turned into a nightmare. But the war was not without its moments of triumph for the Americans. One of the most famous naval battles of the war took place early on, when the USS Constitution, nicknamed Old Ironsides, defeated the British warship HMS Guerriere. This victory, though symbolic, provided a much-needed boost to American morale. For the first 2 years of the war, Britain's attention was focused on its struggle with Napoleon in Europe. But in early 1814, the French emperor was forced to abdicate, allowing Britain to shift its focus to the war in North America. With fresh troops and resources, the British ramped up their efforts, and the tide of the war began to turn. In August 1814, British forces launched a daring attack on Washington, D.C., capturing the capital and setting fire to the White House and other government buildings. This humiliating blow sent shockwaves through the United States. But the American spirit was far from broken. Later that same year, American forces achieved a stunning victory at the Battle of Baltimore. It was during this battle that Francis Scott Key, inspired by the sight of the American flag flying over Fort McHenry, penned the words to what would later become the U.S. national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. By late 1814, both sides were eager to bring an end to the conflict. The British economy had been severely impacted by the trade embargo, and the war was growing increasingly unpopular in both Britain and the United States. In December of that year, negotiators from both countries met in Ghent, Belgium, to hammer out the terms of peace. The resulting Treaty of Ghent, signed on December 24, 1814, effectively ended the war. However, due to the slow pace of communication at the time, news of the treaty did not reach the United States until February 1815, after one final bloody battle. In early January 1815, British forces launched an attack on New Orleans, hoping to capture the strategically important city. They were met with fierce resistance from American troops led by General Andrew Jackson. In one of the most lopsided battles of the war, Jackson's forces inflicted heavy casualties on the British, securing a decisive victory. When the War of 1812 finally came to an end, there was no clear victor. The United States had not achieved its goal of expanding into Canada, and Britain had failed to crush the young republic. Yet, in many ways, the war marked a turning point for the United States. The conflict had fostered a sense of national pride and unity, particularly in the aftermath of victories like the one at New Orleans. It also exposed the weaknesses of the young nation, prompting leaders to invest in infrastructure, military improvements, and economic development in the years that followed. Perhaps most importantly, the war brought an end to the bitter political divisions that had plagued the country. The Federalist Party, which had opposed the war from the start, was discredited by its anti-war stance and faded into obscurity. In its place, a new sense of American identity began to take shape, one that would define the nation's trajectory for decades to come. As we look back on the War of 1812, it's clear that this conflict was more than just a minor skirmish in the early years of the Republic. It was a defining moment, one that tested the resilience of a young nation and laid the foundation for its future growth and prosperity. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the War of 1812, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating historical content. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a new video.